Hello and welcome to another interactive session on wildlife conservation and management. Today we'll be handling a topic on wildlife habitat requirements. I being your host, Dr. Wild. Just like humans, animals also require a standard of essential resources for their survival and well-being. In order to best understand wildlife habitat requirements, we start by defining different terminologies that will be constantly used during this presentation. Habitat. This is the physical space within which an organism lives, and the abiotic and biotic entities, for instance, resources it uses and selects in that space. Habitat availability. This refers to the accessibility and use of physical and biological components in an habitat. Habitat avoidance. This is the tendency of the animals to shy away from a given ecology due to its existing unfavorable conditions to support their survival. Habitat preference. This describes the relative use of different locations within an habitat by an individual or species. Habitat quality. This is the potential of an area to provide appropriate conditions for individual and population persistence. Habitat selection. This is the hierarchical process that involves innate and acquired behavioral decisions made by an animal about what habitat it would use at different scales of the environment. Habitat use. This is the way an animal utilizes a collection of physical and biological entities in an habitat. Habitat range. This is the area traversed by an animal during its activities at a specified period of time. Ecosystem. This is the combination of all abiotic conditions and biotic entities and their ecological interactions in a given area. Lastly, we look at carrying capacity. Carrying capacity has been defined differently to mean the number of animals an habitat can support in a healthy, vigorous conditions. B. The upper limit of population growth, above which no further increase in the population can be sustained. Lastly, the number of animals of a given species supported by an habitat over many years. Wild animals will not inhabit areas too far from water, even when cover and food are in abundance. Most of these animals will go for weeks without food, but will only last days without water. And this makes water a very essential resource in the wild. The animals require water for digestion and metabolism, for cooling, and the removal of metabolic waste from the body. The springs, the oases, the creeks are some of the sources of standing water in the wild. But animals can also obtain water from their diet on green leaves, leaves and leaves, or as a byproduct of the body breaking down fat and starch. When wild animals does require drinking water, their habitat must contain a permanent source of water, or else they will tend to migrate to areas that have the water for drinking. Because for their growth, size, reproduction, and general body condition, there must be an optimum supply of water. The availability of water alone in the natural habitat is not enough. This resource has to be accessible to these animals. Otherwise, due to disturbance, some of these animals will abandon their watering points to move to more secluded places for drinking. Lack of rainfall again also affects the quantity and the quality of the available food for these wild animals. And therefore, as a manager, the habitat should be designed in such a way that when there is not enough sources of natural water, the drinking point should be distributed evenly at an interval of about 0.8 kilometers. Space and home range. Each wildlife species require a given amount of space to move about, to avoid or escape predators, to locate mate, to get food and water, or for rest. Space and home range requirements vary by species, but is also determined by the availability and the quantity and the quality of food, cover, and water available in the habitat. Other factors affecting space needs of wildlife include the size of the animal. Larger animals require more space. The dietary preference. Carnivores require more space than herbivores. And lastly, how well the animal can withstand crowded conditions. Space as a function of habitat quantity and quality will determine the carrying capacity of the site for wildlife. Increasing the quantity and the quality of the habitat component will often increase the carrying capacity of the habitat to support wild animals. Wildlife requirements for food, cover, and water vary according to one, wildlife species, age and sex, physiological conditions like gestation, lactation, antler growth, mention a few, the time of the year, and the geographic location.